Teachers, what are your most terrifying, this generation can't read, behave, or do basic stuff stories? I teach math in high school, and I've had more than a few students who are basically working at a second grade level. Some graduates couldn't solve 2 times 3 in their heads. I've had 11th graders who didn't know what a square root was, didn't understand how multiplying by 0 or 1 worked, and couldn't solve something as simple as x plus 1 equals 8. This year, I had a 10th grade girl who just couldn't understand what 20 more than means in a problem. I tried explaining for minutes, then gave her an example. Imagine we're at the store. I buy some apples. You're going to buy 20 more apples than me. If I buy 5 apples, how many will you buy? She answered, 20. I've been teaching grades 9 through 12 for 9 years now. The scariest part is that they don't know how to think. Problem solving, analysis, logic. A huge number of kids have super weak mental processing power, and it feels like in the last couple of years things have fallen off a cliff. I blame TikTok. They don't even have time to process the tiny chunk of content they just saw before the next one rolls in. One year in the middle of the school year, they transferred a 3rd grader into my 4th grade class, but he read at a 1st grade level. Within 2 weeks, he was suspended because he spent more time picking fights than learning. The school psychologist took him for art therapy, and it turned out he didn't even know basic shapes. Honestly, it was one of the worst cases of neglected kids I've ever seen. Of course, his parents were outraged. How come our child isn't on the honor roll? Why is he failing every subject? And to top it all off, the regional school superintendent pulled a big brain move and pushed him forward into 5th grade. I've got a buddy who teaches high school music. He says he doesn't see the same kind of mass brain melt in his students. He honestly believes music is the antidote. It builds patience and focus. Just in the past year, I can think of 3 students who got caught, let's just say, performing a weird solo side quest in class while making eye contact with other kids. We also had a guy running a full underground bazaar in the boys' bathroom, vapes, snacky smoke stuff, candy sticks, even a burner phone for deals. Basically a one-kid economy. When I try explaining that their writing is unreadable because the grammar is chaotic and sentences don't make sense, I get answers like, I said what I said. If you don't get it, that's your problem. Punctuation, too advanced for them. Commas, a forbidden dark magic. Yeah, middle school is wild. And honestly, this generation's going to have a mountain of problems. It's not about teachers, curriculum, discipline, or even the whole back in my day we could spank excuse. It's 100% because politicians are wrecking education from the top down. If kids at your school can't read, you can bet some rich big brain decided to strip away the resources they needed. I wanted to be a teacher once. During my practicum, I was in a district where parents thought their little gremlins were always right. One mom actually called every single school board member demanding I be fired because her kid thought my class wasn't challenging enough. These were 10th graders. For an intro assignment to the house on Mango Street, I asked students to draw their dream house. That was it. Apparently, that was so offensive to the kid that his mom demanded my immediate termination. She never said anything to me directly. I only heard about it from the principal. When I called her to ask what the problem was, she hung up on me. Later, I offered her son extra, harder assignments. He refused, saying he wasn't going to work any harder. I asked him, then why exactly were you trying to get me fired? He went quiet and never complained again. There was also a girl I caught cheating. I gave her a 0 and told her, good luck in summer school. Her parents demanded a retake. I refused. They dragged the principal and vice principal into it. End result, the girl failed the class and went to summer school anyway. After finishing my practicum, I noped right out of teaching. Looking at that potential future, I knew it wasn't for me. The pay is way too low to deal with raising other people's not-so-great kids, and they can keep them. Funny story from a friend who teaches senior English. She once assigned a research paper on the legend of Sleepy Hollow. One student's essay got weird. Suddenly it was about mysteries and time travel. She eventually realized he had pulled the classic move, Googled it, but opened the page for the 2013 TV series, not the book. Then he just copied that. They're terrible at problem solving and self-checking. They struggle to concentrate. Ask them a question and they just stare like they're waiting for you to spoon-feed them the answer. No initiative, no drive, no curiosity. I'm studying to become a teacher. During my practicum, my students, ages 12 to 14, would come up to me and ask what time it was. I'd glance at the big wall clock, which they could also see perfectly well, and tell them. But here's the kicker. None of them knew how to read an analog clock. I even tried explaining it to a few, and they just looked at me like I had 2 heads. My buddy teaches 5th grade. Right now, he's getting kids who learned to read during the lockdown years. He says some of them can't even tell time on a digital clock. This week, I had a student giving a book report where he compared it to the movie. He straight up said that reading the book was hard because he had to think to understand the plot, but he loved the movie because the movie thinks for me. I once had a preschooler whose speech was completely incoherent. He basically couldn't communicate at all. I told his mom he should be tested and sent to a speech therapist. She said, "Oh, but then he won't baby talk anymore. I'll miss that cute gibberish." A friend of mine who's a teacher told me she's been noticing for years that kids are getting worse at working with technology. She said a lot of her students have computer problem-solving skills on the same level you'd expect from your grandparents. I guess this generation, raised in a squeaky clean world of tablets and apps, just skipped all those trial and error lessons millennials had to learn on clunky old computers and the early internet. I teach in college, and the number of students who can't write even a basic research paper is depressing. I had one student researching a company. The thing is, the company had changed its name years ago. It was obvious she was copying from some old student's paper. I told her over and over, Company A is now Company B. If you're still calling it Company A, it's clear you never even went to their current website, which is a required part of the assignment. She ignored me, kept writing Company A, and ended up failing the paper. One high schooler asked me what it means to put something in your own words instead of just copy-paste. Another student turned in a 3-page essay where his only cited source was literally Google. And yet another wrote down as a source, Jesus Christ, the beginning of time, the Bible, for a college paper on evolution. I quit teaching in 2023. I taught earth science mostly to 10th graders, about 15 years old. On a plate tectonics test, I asked, what do California, Alaska, and Japan have in common? I expected something about the Pacific Ring of Fire. Even a simple answer like, they're on fault lines, or they have earthquakes, would have worked. One kid wrote, they're all in America. Bro, you watch anime. How did you write that? My friend, a high school teacher, says this happens in his class almost every week. Hey, where's your laptop? In my backpack. Why isn't it on your desk? Battery's dead. Where's your charger? At home, probably. Okay, do any of the other 20 kids here have a charger you could borrow? Student, blank stare for 5 seconds. Maybe? Well, are you gonna ask? Oh, right. Hey guys, anyone got a charger? My friend swears they have zero ability to switch to a plan B if plan A fails. Only 27% of kids entering 6th grade at the local middle school are at grade level in math. And beyond that, their problem-solving and critical thinking skills are basically non-existent. A lot of them operate with the mindset of, do it for me, or I just won't do it at all. You can literally skip assignments and still get pushed ahead. Motivation isn't required anymore. And just so you get how worrying this is, 6th grade math covers fractions, averages, reading graphs, simple decimals, percentages, and so on. Nowadays, they hand out multiplication charts instead of making kids memorize them. I graduated high school more than 10 years ago, and even back then, we had a full classroom of seniors who read every single word, letter by letter. Want to hear something wild? It actually got worse. I'll never forget my freshman year of college when we were asked to split into groups and proofread each other's essays in English. It was eye-opening to see that students who got into a decent university couldn't just fail at making an argument, they couldn't even structure their essays properly. And this was 15 years ago. I'm not a teacher, but I work in a museum. Parents once let their tiny kid, maybe 3 to 5 years old, run around opening random drawers and cabinets, including the storage closet with industrial cleaning chemicals, and try to play with them. When I told the mom she couldn't do that, she snapped that I was suppressing her creativity. Then she argued that because the museum is interactive, everything counts as part of the exhibit. Nope. When I pressed the issue, she stormed off. And it's not just toddlers. I've seen older kids try to climb on a 1905 fire truck behind ropes and a giant "do not touch" sign. We even had to lock up our chickens in their coop all day sometimes because kids kept trying to ride them like horses. No chickens were harmed, just extremely confused. Meanwhile, parents were either nowhere to be found or just did nothing. Once I asked a college sophomore to share his own thoughts on a text. He pulled out his phone, typed my question into ChatGPT, and then read the answer out loud like it was his. I was a substitute teacher in elementary schools for years. Phonics isn't taught anymore. No in-class mental math drills either. Everything's supposed to be done at home with parents. Spoiler, it isn't. That's why kids have zero muscle memory for basic operations, and they can't move beyond that to solve problems. On top of that, our district bought into the whole spiral math system. From 1st grade, they show kids advanced concepts like negative numbers every year, but never actually teach the basics in depth. Next year, same thing. They still don't get it. By the time they hit middle school, they've already decided math is a giant, spooky black hole. They hate it and avoid it whenever possible. Teaching under those conditions is brutal. It was awful seeing sheer fear and total confusion on their faces whenever math came up. You just want to scream, "We can do better than this." Thanks for watching. Teachers, drop your most horrifying "this generation can't read or behave" stories in the comments. And don't forget to check out our other vids. See you next time.